Everybody, I've got good evening, everybody. I've got Cookie, Fairy Poo, Kendo, Peter Howard, and myself with us tonight. It's going to be sort of hitting solutions, but not solutions to be taken to people's hearts that we have the solutions. It's just general ideas of solutions, and on that, I'm going to throw it open. I think Cookie wanted to start.
Yeah, on exactly that point, really, because this is something that comes up continuously and will continue to come up continuously, because obviously it's very relevant to everybody. So I'm semi-distracted while I'm sharing the link so that hopefully people can see that it is actually live now. Because I know people were sat waiting. We were doing our usual thing of chatting before we actually clicked the live button. Yes, hello everybody. Hello to all the people who are already there in the chat room. And obviously Dean's here because he's hosting it. We've got Fady Poo and Kendo and Peter of the Welsh lands. I'll call you that because people will then, maybe if they're used to watching Kip's shows, know the difference between you and the other Peter of the Lowlands. Yeah, decided to title it Be the Solution because I was asked to give it a title last night on this kind of topic, and to me it's just like, be direct, keep it direct. It's a simple way of saying it to make it as obvious as possible, Captain Obvious. This is obviously a thing that comes up again and again and again, will do continuously, because when things get bad for people, they look for solutions. And a lot of the topics that we talk about, certainly on the big picture scale, the geopolitical scale, you get this constant question of, well, what are your solutions? How are you going to fix it? What are you going to do about this, that, or the other? How do we solve these problems? How do you get out of the system? All the questions you can think of. And for me, part of the problem of trying to help people or connect with people and help them see this thing for what it is and do something about it, hopefully, is that they get stuck, as they do with many subjects, they get stuck on the needing to have a solution given to them by somebody else. So, for example, you would come to me and say, well, what's your solution to fix this? And you wait as if I am going to go, first you do this, then you do this, then you do this. There you go, there's the list, carry on. So in effect, you are just replacing one authority figure with another. Yeah, rather than asking your government, how are we going to fix this, please fix this for us, you just, in the slide from the state system into the alternative, you just redirect that same desire to have somebody else give you all the answers, make it all right, to fix it, kiss it and make it better, and everything works again. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing or an unrequired thing. That's part of the process, but please don't get stuck on that outwardly directing or giving away your authority and responsibility for doing something that you can do for yourself most of the time. Obviously there's things that you can't do, but a lot of what we often talk about, solutions can be found from yourself. The way you change your environment, change what you do in yourself, change your own lifestyle, change your points of view. Yeah, it goes on. And that's why I chose that title as a play on the classic Gandhi quote of be the change you want to see in the world. It means you are the solution, because you are the point where you make that choice of which direction you're going. And in which direction you're going, that begins the solution to the problems that you're having. I know this sounds very generalized, and that's why I wanted to have this little rant at the start to sort of point this out, because I've had this a lot over the years. I've been on YouTube, and I think it is often used, maybe somewhat through ignorance on the part of the questioner, but also it's used deliberately as a stigma to try and slow people down or disrupt the conversation or misdirect people. I I do not concentrate on detailed information of solutions. I know there are solutions to various problems out there, and there's other people already talking about those kind of detailed bits of information that would be very useful for you to know. You know, there's plenty of websites to do with any topic you can think of where you can find that kind of information. So I concentrate on what I feel I do well at, which is talking about concepts and philosophies and generalities a lot of the time. But the majority of what I'm doing is trying to help people realize where the problems are coming from, what are the root causes of them, and how there are possibilities for you to be able to change the results, to be doing something else that will change the direction away from those problems. Yeah. So for me, when somebody comes at me and says, well, you're not talking about solutions, therefore I'm not going to listen to you. Anything you say is rubbish because you don't give a solution. You talk about all the problems, but you never give a solution. And it's like, well, okay, so that means basically you don't want to listen to anyone unless they presume that position of authority over you and hand you a list that says do this, do this, do this solution. Yeah. I will quite happily point at a lot of things, a lot of links, a lot of other people out there, a lot of YouTube channels, various places where you can, if you want to, go and look at information, listen to other people, watch other stuff that will give you those kind of solutions. Yeah, I think we need to get past this stigma that unless there is a solution, you cannot talk about something. It's a way of ignoring or denying something. It's similar to the bullshit, the New Age bullshitism of just ignore it and it'll go away. You can't do that. And sometimes part of the catalyst and cathartic process of people realizing they need to change direction is the venting of the problems they're experiencing and how they don't like them and they want to get away from them. So again, for me, a lot of what I do and what I put out there is to try to help people or remind them that by having these kind of conversations, we are doing something that we used to naturally do throughout the ages, where we would come together as communities, discuss problems, and then we'd go off and do our thing. And we might choose slightly different directions or slightly different solutions to those problems, but we'd all go from that point, go, oh, right, yeah, okay, it's a problem. Go and deal with it. You know, you're not ignoring it. And you're getting over the stigma of, oh, you can't talk about stuff like that because you're being negative. Oh, no, it's not allowed. The system often tries to co-opt your emotions. It boxes them, it romanticizes them, it gives you a cookie-cutter version of them and tells you when it's okay to experience them and express them. I'm trying to help and remind people that that's not true. That's a form of commodity or commodification, which the system loves to do because then it can charge you $1 for doing it for you. Stop falling for that shit. Yeah, I'm very happy to talk about solutions, but I wanted to be clear on those 2 points. One, don't get stuck in the expectation that you have to have somebody hand you a detailed bullet-pointed plan for how to do something. We can figure things out as we go along. Oftentimes humans are excellent at doing exactly that. And don't fall into the stigma of not talking about something or expressing a problem or a concern about what's going on in the world because you don't have a ready-made box solution to present to answer that problem. Thank you guys for letting me rant that, because I feel it's very relevant to a lot of this when we come to these kind of questions. And as I said, this question is almost permanent, perpetual, because there's problems that need solving, so people are looking for solutions to those problems. I'll shut up now and I'll roll a smoke so other people can talk. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to sort of add. You know, it's and I've had that similar thing where you've spoken out, and you know, people want solutions, or you know, and it does stifle things, and it still shouldn't stop the debate. So you're absolutely right. And I do the same as you. You know, I speak out the same way because I think you should keep saying it. And this is a perfect platform to do that in. So we utilize it and we do it here, and try and do it in my people around me as well, but not too hot and heavy. You know, with a bit of balance, not too in your face like maybe a few years ago I was. I've learned to sort of calm that down a bit. I was a bit overexcited maybe. So, you know, it's all about learning and moving through, you know, layers yourself and understanding. So, yeah, and we mustn't stop talking about it. I absolutely agree. It's you know, we go through the same subjects. I mean, the few years, 3 years or so, which is not a very long time. Some people have been, you know, doing this sort of thing for, you know, known about these sorts of subjects for, you know, years and years and years. So, but the stuff I've come across the last, well, say 7 years myself, but say doing it online and, you know, looking in things and talking about it, you still see, you see it go in cycles where people are waking up at various points. So you see the, you know, the fluoride thing come around again. You'll see various things go around in loops. So you know people are getting things, because that you were looking at that like 10 years ago, and you know people are, it's coming around again. And people are beginning to post things and say, "Oh, have you seen this?" And I thought, "Well, yeah, I saw it." So people are getting it, which is a good thing to see. So
we've got the best form at hand here, really, haven't we? It's like I said to somebody the other day. We're not the first lot of people for be doing this. It's just that we've now got the internet and we can use it more to our advantage. Also, it's to their advantage, granted, because they know exactly what we're doing. But at least it's more people coming across little venues like this that ears pick up and think, well, I'm interested in this, and then it gets passed around with their friends. Well, it's like we need to start using this more to our advantage instead of just hanging out and wasting time and opportunity. Yeah. I'll leave it open for anyone there.
My way of doing it, I've mentioned it before in the Hangout. Every sort of negative thing that you end up sucking into yourself by looking at what's really going on, it does affect you. You go through stages and this and the other. But what I've started to do for quite a long time now is try and pull that all into one place in my mind. And my solution to it, which I've said before on this, is every morning when I go for a poo, that content from that circle that's in my mind, every morning I go for a poo, I shit on that content. And it started with me pooing on the Prime Minister's Question Time. I used to visualise Prime Minister's Question Time in my mind and poo all over it in the morning, every morning. And if you look at the way politics has gone over the last few months, you know, shit's coming down inside Parliament. Like this morning, the Tories thought that their conference was going to get off to a fine start, and I've noticed that the title of the Tory conference is Securing a Brighter Future, or Securing a Better Future. What's this securing bit? That's the bit that worries me. Why are you using the word securing? Yeah. What are you securitizing, you bastards? So every morning when I go for a poo, I poo all over them. In my mind, I poo all over them, and like the shit's hit the fan at the Tory conference because they've had a defector this morning, which has knocked them off their pedestal a little bit, and they're all wavering. And you can hear the politicians talking, and there's a little wobble in the voice because things aren't going as according to plan as they wanted them to. So the showpiece is not quite a showpiece, and I like to think that one or two of my turds have created that situation, and that's how I deal with it. And the more I tune my thoughts into that and pass it through my bowels, yeah, that's the way I deal with you, you bastard. That's my solution. I'm shitting on you every morning.
Good way of getting it out. But I play guitar to switch off and to filter all that crap out, probably like from the following day, from the day before. But what I've gleaned from the chat tonight is that there's probably, and I was chatting with Dean earlier on this afternoon, and we got to chatting about this. There's a lot of people out there that are just like a lot of us, and watch but don't participate, and they're isolated. They haven't got at least sort of one person that's within a sort of reachable distance around them that's able to, you know, talk like this and give this respite from the world, come together, you know, to share the energy and the load and that. And it's important that every one of us has at least just one of us, you know. So we should also like reach out a little bit more, because I'm sure throughout the people that we know that function like us, are informed like us, we know other people that might live next to someone that we've been chatting to on YouTube or whatever platform for months, you know, and it can make a big difference. So I'd like to encourage everybody to do that, and all of us as well. I always do.
Yeah. Major part of the solution requires us to be collaborating and cooperating and working together. And again, you know, people get hung up on things like communism and collectivism and all these kind of fucking ridiculous ideologies and whatever, and it's like, that's not what it means, people. Yeah, it's if you were living on your own in the middle of the wilderness, then you're living on your own in the middle of the wilderness. You've got to do everything for yourself, but that's not really where we are, is it? And hasn't been for a very, very, very long time. We're social beings. The way we work well is when we work as social beings, which means we interact with others and we share the load and we cooperate, we share knowledge, we share skills, and that way we get a hell of a lot more done and achieved than if we're trying to do it all ourselves on our own.
We're also not good to anybody else if we don't put. You need to put a certain amount of your energy back into yourself and what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you're not as functional. You're not as good as you can be to, you know, to make any difference to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to find. Yeah, you've got to find that balance, and you know, a lot of people put a lot of good energies into some good areas, but again, you know, they give too much. I'm talking in maybe spiritual circles and stuff where they give far too much, and you know, they forget about themselves as well and the problems that are going on down here as well.
Or even the voluntary sector in the bigger world.
Yeah, in the bigger world, yeah.
Exploitation hugely at the expense of, it can be almost an addiction to give your time.
Yeah, the churches as well. You find a whole lot of people who just help out, you know, they do voluntary work in effect for the churches, and they put a hell of a lot of their life energy into it. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean they're helping the big picture in the long run, but they go through life just investing all that energy into that.
Mm.
Now, one other thing I wanted to note as well is like another common misconception, which I think we sort of talked about before, I know I've mentioned it before, is that impression that all you do is sit around and talk. You know, the classic, like if you've seen the Monty Python film, Life of Brian, where the I can't remember the name of their society, the guys are like the equivalent of the union reps are all sat around the table talking about what they're going to do about the Roman Empire. And the woman comes in and says, oh, they're crucifying Brian, they're crucifying. And they're like, right, we need to have an emergency meeting. And they all carry on talking. And it's like there is this because of the way the internet operates, and certainly with YouTube and now with these Hangouts, I feel there is this misconception that because people see you here sat talking, it's almost like they think you don't exist in any other way except when they see you here. So if what you're doing here is just sitting talking, they think the entirety of your existence is sitting and talking. It's not true, is it? We've all got stuff to do. There's things we do in our lives, and for all we know, each person you're looking at could be off doing various stuff, in the physical world, in the real world. People need to, I think, again, it's a layer of the media that is following us like a bad stink from the system and the way the system operates. The system wants you to think the world is in your telly box, and in the same way we are to a degree replicating that, because you're seeing us through a monitor or a gadget or whatever, and it's just a telly box image. But please, we need to get past that and say this is not media. To me, it's not anyway, even though I know we can have a laugh and a joke and whatever, but I'm not doing this for entertainment reasons. Yeah. There's plenty of other stuff out there you can look at, videos of kittens and whatever, if all you want is entertainment. I'm doing this to make you think. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly the thing. I mean, I was saying that to someone just today. So yeah, it's that's what it's about. It's to make people realise and understand that there's people like us, and as Fady was saying as well, we are beginning to realise a lot of things, and some people are further along in understanding than others, and people have seen through various layers of it or whatever, and we're all sort of we've got the same goal, to end the slavery, end the nonsense, and these sorts of hangouts and these types of things will utilise until they stop them, which I don't think they ever will, because I think they use them as a gauger as well. So they're sitting there maybe thinking about these things we say when we get in these kind of discussions and roundtable events, where we can talk sense and we can get to some kind of understanding and get the audience and the people who listen to see where we're coming from and all those different aspects of this, because there's lots to understand. It's a plethora. It's a huge, wherever you are on that kind of understanding, it's a roller coaster ride, and off you go. You go up, you go down, you come through realizations and all the rest of it.
It reminds me of something else I wanted to mention as well. 'Cause you're talking in effect about that, like scale, almost a scale, but I'm not trying to say that people are forced one side or the other, but in effect a lot of the stuff we're talking about, and especially when it's referenced to what are your solutions, what are the solutions, etc. There's a lot of people out there that have proved and are still proving on a daily basis and will prove in the future that there are alternative ways to do things that are away from this system, and that you'll see that on somewhat of a sliding scale. To me, I'm sort of I've described it before as having like 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the gate, the exit, and I don't feel honest in saying that I've got 1 whole foot outside of the gate. I haven't, because I know, and I've seen plenty of examples of people that are much further out of the system than myself easily. For myself, I feel a little bit like I'm the guy who's standing near the lifeboats and I'm pointing towards the lifeboats. I haven't exactly got my foot in a lifeboat yet, but I'm trying to point the people in the right direction. And you'll find there is the scale of that, there are people who are still fully inside the system but trying to give you these kind of messages, and then there are people who are near enough completely outside of it who are still waving at you saying come out, come out, come out. So think of examples of like where somebody's living on a small farm where they're near enough fully self-sustainable, they're growing their own food and all that kind of stuff, but they still have an internet connection and they actively do things like this. Yeah, that to me is somebody who's near enough all the way out the gate, but they're just keeping a toe in so that they can try and help direct people out of the gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think there's that. This is indoctrinated into us from an early age of that. It has to be black or white. It has to be one or the other. It can't be both. You have to pick one or the other. You're either in the system or you're outside it. You're either with us or you're against it.
Yeah.
And that gets so ingrained into us that people have a difficulty in accepting things such as, okay, you live on your own plot of land where you grow your own food, but you've still got a computer, so that means you haven't escaped the system, has it? Ha ha ha, hypocrite, hypocrite, ha ha ha. And you get all that kind of conflict, which just helps the system perpetuate what it wants out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and please don't. I know a lot of people will. I shouldn't presume, but some people may see or think a lot of what I'm saying sounds very much like the kind of cultural Marxism of making things a big blur, so there is no clear defining lines between wrong and right. You know, there is no good or bad, and so that's not what I'm trying to say to you at all. To have a scale of grey, to have the classic shades of grey, there has to be a black and a white at either end of that scale. Yeah, otherwise you wouldn't have grey. So there is right and wrong. There are objective truths about reality and the universe you're partaking in, but the majority of what we experience is subjective and relative. So there is that scale. There's a scale of how much you know, how much you're aware of, and how much somebody else knows and how much they're aware of. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, their agenda, I'm on about the powers that be. If you look at the news channels, the news media, I mean, if you listen to the radio network throughout Britain, it's basically the same from one end of the country to the other. So on a daily basis, they're trying to climb into our thought process and interfere with it and upset us, get us emotionally involved, you know, i.e. the death and destruction we saw in Gaza. Or I've noticed today, we flicked onto the BBC News channel 3 times, and apart from the Gulf and George Clooney, all it was about was how much death and destruction is being administered by the Americans and the British on whoever is in the area of play in the Middle East. And that, over a period of time, when you're constantly bombarded with that, then your mind is full of their crap. It's full of what they want you to think. It's full of BBC propaganda, Sky News propaganda, whatever. And I tried, in my way, I tried to detract from that and control my thought process. And by controlling as best as you can, I mean, we all get wound up. I mean, we got a little bit wound up about Cameron's speech on Friday. But by not allowing their thought process to contaminate my thought process, I think that the more minds are uncontaminated, whilst we know what's going on, they are informing us, this, that and the other, but whilst we don't allow it to contaminate us and we put that uncontaminated thought out there, it is doing something. It's doing something. Because if they're convinced that by contaminating our minds with the crap that they put out on the news station, then they're doing as much in their effort to destroy our thought processes and to stop this 100 monkey syndrome working for us. And that's basically why I do what I do, is to sort of try and put something a little bit cleaner into the 100 monkey syndrome, if you want to call it that, and make it better for all those of us who are, you know, and the more people that gather into that mindset, and I think that's a form of a solution as well.
Yes, definitely. I think it's something worth expanding on, which I will, because you know what I'm like. It is definitely, it's another one of those little frustrations for me that people, I think I mentioned this the other night as well, if they don't see you moving stones, they think you're not doing anything. Because again, the system likes to try and convince you that there is nothing about reality that is not 3D physical that you put your hands on. Yeah, if that were true, why are they so obsessed with psyops and messing with people's heads? Yeah, but they are. They expend a hell of a lot of time and effort and energy to mess with your head. That should give you a clue that there's important stuff about what goes on in your head.
Well, I was about to say, Cookie, you know, with that thing, because I haven't seen that speech Cameron did, because I haven't looked at anything for a couple of days. But the fact that he mentions or incites something, or not incites something, but mentions about people who are into, like, you know, conspiracy theories or 9/11 stuff. Is interesting, because it shows you that they're worried, and they have to mention it in that sense, because that shows that people are paying attention to other alternative things, and they've got their own views. They see the evidence for themselves, and they see other things that are going on around them as well that aren't connected to those things, but they put two and two together, and you work out, you know, you work out if they're doing that, they must be involved in something over here as well. So you work out that your actual rulers and governments are completely corrupt at every single level, all the way through, right to the top. So it all kind of is like a domino effect all happening. But yeah, so it shows you they're worried. It shows you there's something that they have to say out there in the mainstream that hits a lot of, you know, people, that these things are put there in their minds. Say, you know, these people who disobey or they don't agree with the official stories of their bullshit are, you know, crazy or terrorists or whatever. You know, it's mental. It's crazy stuff. It's good social engineering propaganda. Call it what you want, but that's it in action. You see that in action, and that should wake you up enough. Really, just those sorts of things. I've not seen the speech, but what I heard you guys talking about, you know, I think I'm sort of maybe on the money there with it, even though I've not heard it. So,
when you think of how many millions of people on a daily basis are having their thought processes contaminated with this lot, and, you know, newspapers, whatever, they're putting a lot of effort into messing with our minds. Almost everything that they do in some form or other is a form of subversion to get their own way, to get us to bow down and conform to what they want for us. And they spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and I mean, for instance, the Nudge Committee in Parliament, they've got some very expensive French psychologist who's giving them clues on how to subvert people by nudging them into doing things. A good example was a couple of years ago, if you were self-employed, all of a sudden on your tax bill, you found out there was a little sentence at the top. There are X amount, it gave a number. In my case, it was that there are 200 and odd people in your area who have already paid their tax bill. When are you going to pay yours? Well, if that's not a nudge, a bit of NLP, mind control, that's all they're about. So we have to mind control back for ourselves. We've got to nullify that effect in some way.
yeah, but go on.
I was just going to say, it's a good way, a good point to reference back to the title, and how, as far as I'm concerned, this is very much about solutions. Because again, yeah, people get stuck on that it has to be some kind of physical, direct thing that they see happening. So, for example, you know, you put up a title like that, and they're going to expect to see you building a gasifier oven so that you're not having to pay the energy companies for your energy and stuff. Yeah, that stuff's out there, folks. If you want to look at it. For me, I'm trying to, and I think the kind of stuff we're doing is trying to address the intention before you even get to the kind of thinking of, oh, well, how do I create that energy? Oh, wood gas, yeah, well, a brilliant bit of technology. Yeah, and if we can get ahead of them in that game of, I'm not saying I'm trying to nudge people, I'm trying to deflect the nudge. Yeah, you think of it a little bit like playing a defence position in a sports game. Their nudges are coming at you, going for your goal, and me, I'm trying to get in between that and misdirect it so that it's out the way and it doesn't affect you, or hopefully you see it for what it is, so that you can then think for yourself and address your own intentions. To me, that is about solutions, because every solution begins here. Well, in there as well, yeah. But you think about it, what shall I do? Shall I build a wood gasifier? That's a good idea. Then your hands move and you actually physically do the thing. The physical does not come before the mental or spiritual. The mental and spiritual come first, then we enact the physical. So to me, solutions begin here.
I was thinking of like sort of other things that are happening on an organic level, where communities are beginning to come together to support each other through, say, bailiffs and things like that. On that sort of level, you know, where you're getting people are beginning to realise they have some kind of, they're beginning to understand the basic corruption that's going on and how they're being fooled, and they're understanding the law, and you know how it's been. We've been asleep basically, you know, but we're waking up, like you say. It's you know, people are starting to, you know, support each other, and that's a good thing. In places like Nottingham, you're seeing that, you know, these communities who are all, so if a bailiff is coming, you know, they let each other know, and they'll all go to the address and they'll all help, and you know, that's something that's good. That's beginning to grow, and people are beginning to, you know, realise that unless we sort of do this, we are going to always get beaten over the head by the big bad man, you know.
If this kind of spread of information, such as the bailiffs and the stuff to do with fake, you know, documents, legislation and shit like that, if this doesn't prove to people that that kind of information is getting to a point where the system feels it needs to curtail it, it needs to control it because it's getting out of their control, because people are actually starting to get together and stand up for themselves. Right? Why did Cameron talk about 9/11 and 7/7 truthers? Because they are such traumatic events that they can use the emotive manipulation of those events on you to justify them controlling the flow of information between you. So they can say exactly like he did, oh, we have to stop these people from spreading their rhetoric because they're just as bad as the ISIS terrorists when they're doing that shit. That's the justification. The control will not stop there. The control begins there, and then they'll just keep ticking it up, expanding the goalposts as they do. Mission creep. You know, it's like, oh, you're talking about standing up against bailiffs? Oh, you must be a terrorist. You're not allowed to speak about that. That's banned speech. Yeah. That's what's going on here at the moment.
Yeah, I find it so amazing, though, because I've had an interaction with a bailiff on the telephone, and when I spouted off a couple of things, the first thing they said to me is, how do you know all of this? You know, who are you? Are you a solicitor or something? And they get themselves very flustered when they realise, you know, you're not in fear of them, or you're not scared of them, or you're not. When they say the word warrant, they expect you to just to melt into a heap, and you know, oh, I'm a criminal, you know, and all the rest of it. And it's interesting, you know, it amazes me still. And you know, as I said to this person on the phone, I said, you know, you need to educate yourself and realise what you're doing. You're actually acting illegally every single time you send these guys round. They're totally illegal. So yeah, it's interesting. And now, just again, people don't even know what they're doing. They just carry out orders, and they're just like, you know, order followers, doing a job, getting paid a fiat currency, and you know, bobbing along in the machine.
Well, you know what they'd say? Just doing my job, mate. Everybody needs to eat. Got to have money to buy food.
But
Maybe that would be a good point to sort of, in the solution sense, talk about that kind of principle of, well, it comes back to money, doesn't it? And the exchange economies and control of resources and all that kind of stuff. And this again is one of those cliches where people often talk about things like, oh, you mean you want to go back to living in the woods, eating berries off the bushes and stuff like that. It's like, well, obviously that is not practicable for 7 billion people. If we talk in reference to the UK alone, 70 million people. Yeah, it's not practicable for 70 million people to be living by eating blackberries they find on the bushes. Of course not. But we can be working towards ways to sustain ourselves, or at least get a large part of what we need, by having things like growing your own, having your own little allotment patch, having window boxes with a few plants in, having community farms. And then you've got examples such as Todmorden with their kind of repurposing of council areas of land, like the roadside verges and stuff like that are normally just left to grass. Instead they dig them over and they plant vegetable crops on there. And Todmorden's just one example. There's other examples from across the world, of people doing this kind of thing. So it's another one of those points of there are solutions out there, folks. People demand solutions, and it's, well, have you even bothered looking? You shouted at me to give you solutions, and have you even bothered looking and thinking about this for yourself? The supermarket economy system has become such a corporate cancerous thing that they inject one of the big names into your local community, such as Tesco or Sainsbury's or whatever other name, Asda, Walmart. They inject one of their units into your area, and you will watch every little individual or small business that used to supply you with those kind of needs will just get sucked dry. It's like a vampire parasite gets dumped in your community, and all those little businesses go and they're gone. And all you're left with is this big corporate beast that insists that selling you a combination of chemicals, large amounts of salt and sugar and colourings and shit like that is food. And you ain't left with much choice of what's available to you, because they're the only shop left in your area. So what are you going to do? So that's why, for me as well, it was putting in the little blurb. These things are happening, but it's what you choose to do from this point forward is whether the change goes in the kind of direction that you would like to see. You want to see a better world, start building it.
Yeah.
See, it's all about taking fear away from people as well. Like around my little close, if any of them have got any problems with debt collectors, don't worry about it. Don't fret about it. Don't let it disturb your life to the extent that you're fretting 24/7 and worrying about what's going to happen. Just come and bang on my door and bring me the telephone number and the piece of paper, and I'll ring them up. Just say, "Where's your proof of claim?" And that's the end of that. And we've all learned that solution mainly from people like Get Out Debt Free, Tony Meehan. And it's all breaking down that fear factor that's ripping people apart in their minds, because they are dragged into that whirlpool that they want us to be dragged into. So you can alleviate the pressure in their mind just by saying, "Well, come round here," and I'll give them a call, and hopefully that'll be the end of it for you.
But how many will do that? How many of us are in touch with our neighbours in our communities now? That's all been broken down and eroded over recent times. In our lifetime, in my lifetime, definitely. I've got a lawful notice on my door that I had. I think it was. I don't know whether it was Cookie, or Kendo that pointed out about NLP at the doorway. I think you said doorway. I had a debt collector turn up at my door after reading my notice and then point out to me that he didn't see any of my other neighbours displaying notices on their doors, so I must be the only one that's not paying my council tax. I found that pretty weird as someone who does what he does, applies his wares, using a bit of NLP to me on my door. But most of the people around, I've caught neighbours when I've opened the door back when I had milk delivered. I'd open the door to put my empties out, and there'd be a neighbour on my drive reading the notice, which is there's a fair bit to it. And, you know, I'd be scared at seeing them, and they'd be scared at me. But they never ever came back and asked about what it said, or you know, or displayed a notice of their own anytime soon. Most people are closed off from it, so you've got to connect with them in a very personal way, or they have a catalyst in their life that causes them, you know, a life-changing sort of memory state, and then they start looking at things differently, which is what happens with a lot of people. Repossession being one of them that you just mentioned, people coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I put it out to my kids. I said to my kids, you know, any friends you've got who are experiencing debt collectors banging on the door, you've got my phone number. Any help I can give them, I'm only too prepared to, because it's all part of helping people from getting their heads fucked up with what's going on out there in the real world. And they are solutions for people, even though you've done nothing other than make a phone call and said to some idiot on the other end of the phone, what is your proof of claim? It's quite simple. Now, some of us have gone through that learning process to approach these people with no fear. And the fact is that when they're on the phone, at the other end, like you said, Faded, they're not prepared for it. They don't want anybody on the phone who's got a reasonable bit of knowledge about what their system's all up to. That's the last thing they want. And they certainly don't want us spreading the news around to thousands of people or hundreds of people here, there and everywhere, because it's just going to pull their system down, as we can see over, well, definitely since Tom Watson's attempted eviction. It's encouraged a lot of people to take up the reins, and
big ripples in what's a big pond. They're big, you know, they're bigger than ever ripples. There's a lot of people coming, and there are people that even they haven't had that catalyst in their life yet, but they can see there's only a matter of time before they can no longer afford to keep up their repayments, and they're still in that fear paradigm. They don't know what these people are doing there, but all they can see is that other humans like them are coming together to support one another, right? And that's what we are fundamentally. You know?
Yeah.
Terrorists. That's what we're
we are a threat. Extremists, if you go by Cameron's speech today. He said, to quote, I'm looking at the screen now, he said, it is clear many of recent emergencies like 9/11 and 7/7 were initially influenced by preachers who claim not to encourage violence, but whose worldview can be used as a justification for it. The peddling of lies that 9/11 was a Jewish plot and the 7/7 London attacks were staged. We must be clear, to defeat the ideology of extremism, we needed to deal with all forms of extremism, not just violent extremism.
Yeah, thought police.
We're all paintbrushed with the same.
It's a very good point. So I thought I'd put my Russian hat on because there's so much like anti-Russian propaganda at the moment. There you go. Because Kendo brought this up the other night, and I was sort of being a bit the gay version, you know, not to be homophobic, but you're talking about the Spartacus principle and trying to reconnect that for people of, you know, standing up for yourself principle and standing up together. Yeah, and I say I was being a bit gay about it, you know, I was being the gay Spartacus. It's like, yeah, stand up together, folks, but, you know, don't use violence. And I think this is one of those points that nicely referenced from the clip from Camel Face's speech. For me, when you talk about that Spartacus principle, you're talking about that getting past the fear and having that intention to stand up together and be back in that community spirit where you're not prepared to put up with their shit anymore. You're not going to let them come and take it. Yeah, it's Molon Labe, or Labe, however you want to pronounce it. Yeah, and for me, I've tried to express that for people before. I'm not a total pacifist. If somebody comes breaking into my house to steal my stuff, I'm going to punch them in the face. Yeah, maybe a few other places. And what I'm saying to you is, you take the non-aggression principle as far as you possibly can. Do not aggress against them until they start swinging at you. And then you have every justification to defend yourself, because they are the ones that have broken that principle. Yeah? We can stand up all as Spartacus. I am Spartacus, and so is my wife. And if you start trying to beat on my wife, mate, I'm going to hit you back to stop you. Yeah? To me, that, hey, there you go. Das Vidania. That principle is ever more relevant now. We just need to take it from the principle and not from the history of, the way it's spun, that Spartacus was an escaped slave who led a failed rebellion and eventually got crucified with all his mates because they wouldn't acquiesce and bow down to the big empire beast. Yeah. If it comes to it, and again, like mentioned earlier, I think Dean mentioned it, we're not the first people to talk about this kind of stuff. And for me, reading about history and stuff like that, you see this occur again and again and again. When the system becomes so oppressive and so corrupt and so nasty and just like what it is at the moment, people start to realise it for what it is and they start to stand up against it. And unfortunately, most of the time in the past, they get squished. Yeah, they get sacrificed, they get crucified like Spartacus was, or they get slaughtered like the diggers were in the, what was it, something like the 1600s, something like that, here in the UK. Those people,
yeah,
those people were talking about near enough exactly the same kind of stuff we're talking about now. The fact that the ruling aristocracy, those people who think they own everything, including you, were getting so oppressive and basically taking the piss so much that they couldn't stand it anymore, and they said, look, just let us have a plot of land, we'll leave you alone to play in your system, we just want to be our own little community, we'll fend for ourselves, we won't ask you for nothing, we won't interfere with you, just let us do this. And they wouldn't. They slaughtered them all because they were rebelling. Yeah?
The levellers.
You will be democratized.
Yeah.
You will be.
I think I wanted to mention the Spartacus thing because I think it's very relevant to the point of violence, and they're claiming, Cameron trying to claim, that even if you say you're talking about non-violent principles, you're still a violent extremist. Double think, people. Twisting your mind. NLP to twist your mind and make you accept what they want to do.
Yeah.
To make you hate your neighbour because your neighbour has a poster in his window that says, don't come to my door selling your shit, mate, because I'll put a flea in your ear and send you on your way.
The balance of power, though, hasn't changed that much since then, has it? So we're told by history, or what we're told by history. But the people that are more aware, even on the sort of the underside of their normal existence, it didn't take much to push someone and trigger a little sort of memory of something that, or a bit of knowledge that they've got that they've conflicted with. So back then it was the same ratio of people that were in control to the same population. Now it's the same, but we're still pretty much controlled to the same degree, but there's a lot more people that are potentially able to contribute.
I saw, and I know we've spoken about this before, sort of same topic area anyway. There was, I'm not sure why they were featuring this either. I think it might have been subtle propaganda, as they do on RT, on Russia Today. There was a little video clip about a village, an entire village for sale in Spain, and they were only asking 280,000 euros. So that's like less than the price of a 2 or 3 bedroom house here in the UK, depending on where you buy it. And you can get a whole village, which includes a vineyard and a working winery. Yeah, and as the reason I'm bringing it up is one of the times we've spoken about this kind of thing before is in reference to a little group of people who got together. They sort of formed their own little community. They went and took over, not violently took over, they took possession of this village. I'm not sure if they paid a fee to locals or whatever. I don't know that detail, but they basically moved in.
Which one? The one in London, the Grass to the Nettle one. You're on about?
I'm thinking of one in Spain. It's basically the same principle. They moved in, they renovated it, they cleaned it all up and got it working again as little farmsteads and homes and stuff like that. And they just got on with it. And they're quite happily running their own little community where, like people wanted, they've got their own little community, to use the word again. I couldn't think of another word appropriate at the time, but yeah.
Plan.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd absolutely love to do that, man.
There are plenty of opportunities out there if you want to get involved in that kind of thing. Again, people come to you and ask you for those kind of solutions. They're out there. I've seen this stuff going on for years, and I know there's communities out there. Some fail, some fall apart, or they have difficulties where they have problems with who owns the land and shit like that. The usual kind of silliness that the system throws at you. But I know there's still plenty out there that are carrying on as they are.
Mm. There's apparently one for sale up in Scotland as well. A little village. I was talking to Rick Mack about it before. That'd be apparently. I don't think it's got any power or water to it either.
Water really is the only thing that would be absolutely necessary.
Yeah, but
because
obviously
be self-sufficient anyway, would it? It wouldn't be. I think these little things are put out there to draw out the far more affluently important people amongst the race that are likely to revolt or likely to not support the larger picture.
I agree with you, mate. So act like a steam
to get people concentrated, but especially if you can offer them a little bit of a haven in the midst of all the craziness. They're still surrounded by and subject to all the craziness. So it's like the
retirement
rat trap almost.
Yeah, it's like the retirement dream, or this is how the system is trying to play it. They will offer it to you so that it steam valves your angst against the system, because if they allow you to go off and have your nice little community, you'll stop shouting at them. Yeah. So I agree with you in that sense, mate. To me, it's like, well, don't fall for playing the game. Do it because it creates a lifeboat. It creates an environment where you can carry on this kind of environment, talking about these kind of topics and trying to help people in that way without, trying to isolate yourself completely. I don't agree with that kind of like pocket dimension thing that a lot of people try to do, where they try to escape. That's not really helping, is it? That's very selfish in the long run. But I highly encourage people to get involved in that kind of stuff, because we need those kind of life rafts carrying on, so that if anything really, really bad happened to the whole big system as a whole, there are going to be those little pockets like oases in the desert where people can refer to, where we can rebuild again from. I think it still has a lot of value if you're aware of. Take for example you get that bit of land in Scotland. You go up there, you start building your yurts and planting some crops and getting a bit of livestock, right? And you think you're going well, and then the land registry letter comes through and says, like, you owe us such and such taxes, and you're like living without money. So you're like, well, how are we supposed to get this money? Because this system is demanding these bits of paper from us, and you end up in all those kind of problems.
Yeah.
It's similar to the solar panel scam. You know, it's like they're encouraging everybody to stick solar panels on their roof, but you have to have it tied into the grid. Therefore, you're still feeding the big system, blah, blah, blah.
And
But
in
that's
Spain,
only
they're
if
taxing
you,
them.
if you sign up and contract with the contract that's been dallied in front of it. In the UK, I can only speak for the UK, but they signed people up to that, and they literally signed up to it, and they were obligated to pay, you know, to do, instead of just having their own solar panels and using the energy for themselves, and they could store any of the surplus. They signed to a contract which they were obligated to carry on with because they don't know. You know, there's nothing wrong with. Oh, sorry, I must be trying to film now. I better cut out because the beer. I've only had 4 beers tonight, but they've got the better of me, and I'll listen on, but I'll sort of knob out because I'm talking shit. So.
Just because you brain fart and lose it.
I might be back in a bit then, but it's just the beer is getting better. Get the better of me right now. So even you can tell spiritual. So and I'm.
No worries.
But,
That's, to me, that's part of the solutions as well. Is although expert knowledge and information is great. You know, it's good that we have people that are really knowledgeable about certain subjects and things like that. Why can't we just have a conversation and not worry about if we don't know something or if we've forgotten something or if we're not sure?
Yeah.
You know, everybody's like, he's got to be absolute accurate. It's like, well, I'm just another human being like you. I can make mistakes. I'm fallible. You know, what's going on here? You're demanding perfection when you know it's unachievable just so that you can then attack me. It's very passive-aggressive of you. Thank you very much.
It's that slave mentality, and I've just had one now. I had a sentence there and it's just gone.
No, it's that fear of what people think. Again, it's like, just say it, and if it doesn't come out right or it's come out a bit wrong, it doesn't matter. You know, you can get it right. You can get, you know, I mean, you get it wrong. So you know, you learn as you go, and you know, you've got to start somewhere and just say it. Just say it, and if you know, it does turn into, I say that all the time, I self-police myself, I shouldn't do it, where I think I'm going on a bit too much, or I'm waffling, or I'm looking at Kendo's new hat or something, you know, it's just, you know, that's how it goes, you know, it's like... What is that hat? Oh yes, I can see it now.
Red Army Special.
Classy.
Oh no. I think I lost Poo.
Yeah. But just, I mean, that's it. I mean, I go off sometimes. Like I say, I lose my train, and sometimes it's, oh, well, whatever. And yeah, it's okay. It's because there's that much sometimes we're all talking about as well. You know, it can bounce around so much. You have something in your mind, and then when it comes to you, you go, oh, I forgot. How many hats have you got, Kendo?
Oh,
Just several trips to Moscow that, like, souvenirs, mate, souvenirs.
I find with you, like, you hit subject really quick, and then by the time I've got my questions together in my head, you're on another one, so I just let it go. You get through them that quick.
I have a habit of that. I've developed this kind of like what I would describe as fractal way of thinking, because I find that I can find connections between different topics all over the place, and I like to explore ideas as far down a path as I can. So oftentimes I jump between topics and link them together as I'm going down that thought path. So yeah, I can often drag you along through many different topic areas before I've even finished a sentence.
I'm trying to stay one step in front of Google comments as well, so what I'm actually doing is every comment this evening I've been copying and pasting it over onto my discussion page.
Oh yeah, it's probably a point worth raising for the people who are watching, listening, in the chat room,
Yeah.
etc. Recently, Google has developed this habit. I don't know whether this is going to be permanent or whether it's part of the way they're changing stuff or whatever. You know, this is the way it's been for the past year or two. When the hangout is over and the final video is uploaded to the host's YouTube channel, all the chat that you've been taking part in the chat room that's running while the hangout is live will be gone. It will vanish into the internet ether. So if people are posting things that you're interested in, please make notes for yourself. You know, get a piece of paper or use Notepad on your computer, whatever. But if somebody posts a link or a bit of information that you're interested in, please make a note of it, because all that chat will vanish.
Except for this evening. I've managed to keep up with it so far, of copying and pasting it into my discussion box. So I'll take it out to the discussion box when the chat's finished, and I'll put them in order of what it's been said tonight on the actual video page.
Cool. Thank you for doing that.
I don't think I'll be doing this all the time.
Again, this is why I think stuff like this, they're doing it deliberately. They got the plausible deniability of saying, like, oh, well, we're making changes to make it more functional and make it more user-friendly, and whereas really all it's doing is stifling the conversation. It slows everything down.
Yeah. I was just trying to keep up with chat room as well, me.
They think it's a hat parade tonight. No, it's not. It's not, folks. It's not a hat parade.
In fact,
Cookie started it anyway, and I thought, well, I've got one of those. I'll join in. It was a good idea, Cookie, and I got carried away.
Well, I'm in chat room. I'll just give a shout. Me42 Dogs, James Owen, Fairly Poo, Ian, Bassmate, Blazing Stars, Del Boy. Like that's about it that's commenting tonight. Yeah.
Bright's in.
Yeah, Bright's. I'm just getting down to that now. Bright, evening, Bright. Yeah, I'll pass it back over to you. It's like you say, there's lots of solutions out there, and that is, you've just given me another way of looking at it, really, that it is really running away by isolating yourself, and you then...
If you isolate yourself, yeah. This was something I went through several years ago. I basically was trying to escape to Canada, but at the time, I was still stuck in that mindset of escape, get away from it. You can't deal with this system. You can't stop. This was how I was feeling at the time. You can't stop it. You can't attack it. You can't do anything about it. So just get away from it. All right. So my intention was exactly that kind of classic principle of get a little patch of my own. Well, I was actually going to be living with somebody else over there, but get a little patch where we can be as self-sustainable as we possibly can, and then we can just give the finger to the man and, you know, get on with our own shit. But while I was there, and I was sort of, you know, chatting with people, getting to know them, getting a kind of lay of the land impression and stuff like that, it was going through my head all the time of, you're running away, you're running away, you're running away. Yeah. And that, when I thought about it more, when I sat and considered it, you know, properly, gave it some actual decent thought time rather than just a passing whim, I thought, well, yeah, all I'm doing is a very, very selfish thing of just trying to save myself. And that is just as bad as what they do. You know, that's what the ruling classes do. They don't care about you as long as they and their own family are okay. That's all they care about. They'll quite happily throw you on the pyre to keep their central heating nice and warm. Thank you very much. You know, it's just as bad as what they do. So for me, I ended up with the conclusion that, well, you can still sort of have that kind of good life, you know, the being in that kind of little environment where you're doing for yourself as much as you can, and hopefully the man leaves you alone as much as possible if you're doing, you know, you're playing the right hoops the right way. And I'm not saying, you know, being dishonourable or whatever. It's just that, you know, things like the tax and stuff like that. You know, if you're careful about how you do things, the majority of the time you can stay out of the eye of Sauron, as it were. But you can still keep one foot in this side of the fence and be trying to help people to see the same things you're seeing and to work towards the same things you're working towards. And that to me was why I came back, and it was about that point that was like, right, I've got to do something, so I'm going to start doing stuff online, because that, at least for me in the situation I was in at the time, still is really, was a direct way of communicating this stuff for people in a public sense, so that I'm reaching multiple people rather than just one or two people at a time when I'm sat chatting to them.
Yeah.
You can, again, there's good examples out there of people that are following that kind of principle. You know, the anarchist squats that you find in a lot of major cities do that kind of principle. They try to do as much for themselves as they can without asking for anything from the system, while at the same time trying to help the people in their community, in their larger society. You know, so it can be done. It is there, it is happening, it is a possible solution, and it is a way of building towards disempowering this system. You know, you want solutions to this thing, you can't throw bricks at it because you ain't got a brick big enough to knock it down.
Yeah.
So you've got to do it in the way that the sappers would when they would bring down the walls of a castle. You dig under it and weaken its foundations until it collapses by its own weight. That is what we are doing. By communicating these kind of ideas, concepts, perceptions, etc., and the willingness to actually communicate them, we are subverting and hopefully subsiding the structure that they have built, so it will collapse under its own weight. I would argue, and have done for a while, that it already is. A lot of the major problems we're seeing going on in the world is because the system is collapsing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, financially, morally, well, no, it's morally collapsed already.
Yeah. When it gets so corrupt like it is now, and sorry to use the classic cliche of referring to the Roman Empire or using the Roman Empire as the example, but eventually it becomes so corrupt and so calloused with that ingrained nastiness that it just collapses in on itself and it eats itself from the inside out. Because just like rats escaping a sinking ship, and apologies to the rats out there, because, you know, I think rats are nice creatures, but just like rats, they will eat each other till there's only one left who survives, who thinks he's going to survive, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just have a look. We've been going for an hour. If you want, I can open it up. Put the link underneath to see if anybody wants to join in. Up to you.
I don't mind, mate. I think I've ranted.
Everybody okay with that in room?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I think about the only other thing I'd mention for myself that this being relevant to talking about solutions, I've sort of mentioned the non-aggression principle and stuff like that, is to refer it back to free will. And like it says in the description, it's by the choices you make that you can start steering the ship in another direction. That's what it comes down to, the choices we make and the directions we decide to follow.
Yeah. That was, Peter, you want to cover anything before I open the room up, and you're alright with it being opened up?
Yeah, because I'll have to shoot off in a bit anyway, because I've had a long weekend as well, and I'm a bit tired. I've got to go to work in the morning, so I'll probably only be in here for another 10 minutes. But what we've sort of discussed tonight, and I think it's all, watch back, have a look back, share this, because it's what people need to be understanding. I use the term understanding, but you know what I mean. We need to be getting it is solutions, and there are plenty out there, and we are just seeing like it organically growing at grassroots levels, and that's how it will do. I mean, what Cookie said, the weakening of the foundations is already underway, and it's just how we now move forward without arguing and fighting and spitting at each other, and that's what we've got to sort of get over as well. This kind of, we've got to have these debates. We've got to get people together who can have a conversation like this, and at least, all come to the, like I say, I always say, end slavery, end the slavery on the planet, whatever. So that's what that's what we need to be doing. So yeah, it's been good, guys. Like I say, I'm here for another maybe 5 minutes, but I'll have to buzz off about 11 and get some sleep.
Yeah. Cheers for that, Peter.
I get a bloody shave as well.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to jump on now, if you refresh your page, it's actually in the show more box now. So you're welcome to jump on if you want to join us for the next half an hour to 3/4 of an hour. We'll be live. Don't want to take them too long. The marathons, like I said last night, they're out the window now. It were pointless, it were tiring, and there's only so much you can do and say without going round and round in circles. But we're just going to try and keep them short and sweet now.
Yeah.
I think what we're all agreed on, though, is that solutions are a frame of mind. They're not a list of what to do in case of. They're a frame of mind. And
Yes.
the more we work to help people to gain the knowledge to create the right frame of mind, the more that goes out there, and the more it's going to affect the alternative frame of mind, which is the one that we're being bombarded with on a daily basis from all angles, the fear porn, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And we have to fight through the fear porn, not ignore it. You don't have to ignore it, you just have not to be affected by it and put out your own mental solution, if that's the right word, or psychological, I don't know. Because that is the route to get yourself in the right mental framework, and then their bombardment, their fear porn, has a little effect. I found out that. I mean, I started to watch Obama. He was on the Parliament channel this morning, and he started to make a speech, and as soon as he said, I think it was in the first 3 or 4 sentences, something about the scientists who prove that climate change exists and what we can do to avoid climate change. And I thought that was it. Switched off mentally. You can't hit me anymore. Like, you're talking shit now. That was it. Switched over the channel. You go on to the Sunday politics, and the life for the Tory politician is crumbling. They're all in repair mode. How can we repair the damage we've done to ourselves? Well, you shut up talking shit in my mind. Labour didn't have a very good conference because Miliband forgot half his speech, although he still ranted for 70 minutes or so.
Oh, I thought he'd had the new brain implant. He's got the patch on the top of his head where they put the like thing in, yeah.
Yeah,
No, it
I
must
think
be
his brain's
malfunctioning.
leaking into his nasal passage though, because he's still talking a little bit like that, if you know what I mean.
I know, as well as just to sort of put this across, a lot of the time we laugh and joke about stuff that obviously is very serious subjects. People die. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are dying at the moment because of some of the subjects we're talking about. Not because we're talking about them, but the subjects themselves, the things that are going on. And we laugh and joke about them. But that's part of the not being sucked into the fear.
Yeah.
You know, it's not being uncompassionate. It's not that we don't care about the people that are suffering. Like, take Gaza as a brilliant example, unfortunately. It's not that we don't care. It's just that part of that trauma-based control is to make you so downtrodden with fear and terror and sorrow that you just can't do anything. You become the willing victim because you have no fight left in you, because you think it's all so horrible and terrible and there's no hope, blah, blah, blah. But they're wrong on that. Why, again, reference, why do they expend so much time and energy and effort and money into trying to convince you that it's that way? They want you to be stuck in that kind of mindset because it helps them, it helps the agenda, it makes the machine run. So not succumbing into it, it's not, like I say, it's not being or having a lack of compassion, not at all. It's just laughing at the bullshit of those talking heads that think they're in charge of something. Yeah. All it'd take is for every working person in this country to not go to work tomorrow, and their belief in the power of what they say is going to happen in the country. Hello.
Hi, James.
Right.
Hey, alright, how you doing?
Not so bad, are you?
Right, how right, guys?
That did?
Yes. My wife's doing on noisy.
Well, guys, look, it's nothing you've said, James, but I'm going to have to drop out because I have to get up early in the morning. So I'll say thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's been a great discussion, and I'll see you all in around here, or I'll see you on Wednesday on my channel. So have a good one, guys, and I'll
No problem.
chat to you all later. But thank
Cheers
you.
for joining us, Peter. Good night.
Nice one, guys. Cheers.
Good night, Peter.
Good night.
So,
Sorry. Go on.
I'm just going to say, you want carry on.
Yeah, it should do. It's only been like an hour and 20 minutes. I think roughly 2 hours works well for people because, you know, it's like watching a movie then in terms of time, isn't it? You know, the length of time. And for most people, they've got a couple of hours available. You know, it's just when we end up talking all night and it's like 7 hours long, I can understand why people can't spend the time sitting and watching that length of stuff. It's just too much.
Yeah, I think you slightly misunderstood me and I meant carry on the conversation. But
right, sorry.
Still have a good point.
I was just going to say I've tried to keep up with the chat, but I haven't been able to. So I apologise if anybody was like saying anything directly at me.
It's not been too bad. Like I said, Cookie, I've saved it all this evening, so what I will do is put it all in order on the actual conversation under the video, so you can be able to drop back, and obviously your comments won't go into place. You just have to name the person you're commenting back to or whatever.
I'll tell you what, why not let's try and sort of run through a lot of the classic questions that usually people want solutions for.
I shall. I'm just about to screen share.
I know this is like the big picture kind of thing, which is a bit too much of a generalisation to address. But I mean, things such as, like I mentioned, solar power and stuff like that, and growing your own food, and you know, I'm trying to think of some of the classic things that people usually ask, like, well, what are the solutions to that? And if we can just, I'm not saying we sit here and answer it or every question, because I think a lot of it, you know, is not exactly. It's not possible to give very direct answers about some of it, but I think talking about each possible one may help people to see that there are solutions out there for each one, if that makes sense.
It's a state of awareness that we're after, isn't it, really?
Yes.
It's been mainly I'm talking between yourselves, Delboy, Blazing, and Basvic. That's just been holding a conversation between them, really, and I've been chipping in now and then. It's about a certain channel on YouTube that's like a bit of a stirrer, so I won't.
Oh, there's plenty of them out there, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't get too worried about them.
No, that's what I say. It's very little videos I watch now. I'm more digging into PDFs and things like that myself.
I've got a solution for cold weather.
Put a coat on.
A hat.
Believe me, I've stood in Moscow in -25 with a wind chill factor of -32 and been sweating like a pig with this on. You keep your head warm, the rest of you's warm, apart from your feet, get thick soles. So if we get a Russian winter, you know what to do. Get down the Russian shop, get yourself a hat. Yeah, that's one solution to winter. Keep your head warm, folks.
I'm not sure what they ended up calling them, because I've seen a few different names for them, but as another simple principle on that question of staying warm without having to get sapped by the cost of energy to keep your home warm, you know, as we're heading into winter. If you get yourself a couple of flower pots, one slightly bigger than the other, preferably terracotta pots. I think they need to be terracotta pots, really. And a plate or surface that is safe for you to put candles on for a long period of time. Right? Get the little tea light candles. This is the most economical way of doing it, because you can buy them in bulk and they're like pennies each. You get your plate, put your tea light candles on and light them. You put the smaller terracotta flower pot on top. You then get the bigger terracotta flower pot, which needs to be big enough so that you have about an inch air gap between the smaller one and the bigger one. Put that on top again. That will act like a thermitic convection oven. I'm probably getting the terminology wrong, but basically, because of the air gap and because of the terracotta material, it traps and concentrates a lot of the heat from those little candles. Yeah, be careful with, obviously, you're using candles, you're using open flames, whatever, so put it on a safe, stable surface and all the usual health and safety silliness that you got to do. Yeah, common sense. But they are very, very effective room heaters at a very, very economical cost. Once you've got the bits you need, you just need the tea lights to keep it running. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than running central heating. Yeah. There's some good videos on YouTube about them, if you want to have a look for them. And people have come up with various different ways of putting them together to, you know, to try and make them as efficient as possible.
Yeah, I've seen that one a few times. It does actually kick out quite a bit of heat as well. Terracotta, it holds a lot of heat, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's quite aerated for a clay. because I think that's partly what makes it. It's quite.
That's hidden.
What? What are you squealing at?
I know, tell it. She wanted to say hello to Dean.
Oh, go on then. Say hello to him. He's waiting.
Hi, Dean.
Hello. You okay?
There's lots on in there now.
Right, beat it.
I'm fine. I've got it right.
This is what I've got to put up with.
I just thought I'd come in and interrupt your chat. Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
Take that off, the temperature's climbing. Talk about plant pots, try a Russian that. I feel like I've got a plant pot on my head with a candle in.
Oh. Bye.
So, we only skirted across Cameron's speech, really, didn't we? Tonight and last night.
Yeah. Well, it was so stupid.
Yeah, I think they're slightly running scared. Do you not, Cookie?
Yes.
No?
I do, yeah. I think they're beginning to realise that that a lot of people are losing their fear. You know, especially with, like we were saying earlier, with the bailiff and debt collector situation. We're catching them at every corner when they bring out a piece of legislation. Excuse me, I've got the police hovering above.
It's the black helicopters.
Yeah, black helicopters here.
You probably caught me on YouTube with a Russian hat on and thought, get him, is it? But yeah, I think they're running scared. They're definitely, with the way they're stepping it up over the last couple of years, they've been getting more and more paranoid, haven't they?
Yeah.
The increase of security for the royal family in terms of the control of their information and what they're doing, their whereabouts, all that kind of shit. Even something like the TV license. Yeah, there's more and more people who are realising the bullshit of the TV license and are refusing to pay it.
Yeah.
So even on those kind of principles, you know, so many different ways I can think of that stuff like that is sort of exempling how they are losing control of the narrative. And as they lose control of the narrative, people will do, similar to us, you know, people will be doing it in their own little social circles, communities, environments, the people they interact with. But there are more and more people who are going, right, all that stuff is shit. I don't want anything to do with it anymore. Let's go and do something else.
Also, we've been able to reduce detection time down on a false flag incident from months to hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Them being able to use false flags is becoming very transparent. So that's another little weapon that they're sort of, well, they're not reluctant to use it, but like every time they do use it now, within hours somebody's picked it apart and found something wrong with it, i.e. MH17, M370.
Yep.
I don't know how long it was before they owned up to the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1968, but
yes.
that must have taken years.
It was about 25, 50 years, was it no? 25 years.
I think
Yeah.
it was, I'm not sure if it was that long, I thought it was somewhere around the mid-70s where it first started coming out about they weren't sure whether the torpedo boats were actually US or Viet Cong torpedo boats. Maybe they were planting the seeds of plausible deniability at that point until they admitted it at a later date. I can't remember all the details properly.
Also, we've pulled apart their Hegelian dialectic, which they didn't really want us to pull that one apart. I know they didn't, because
That
the
kind
their
of
policies rely upon that again.
Problem or reaction solution.
that kind of level of thinking, they only want for their puppets that they utilise in their own structure. We, the lowly peasants, are not supposed to be able to think in that manner, because if we can see through the illusion trick of what they're doing. So yeah, that the spread of that kind of awareness and knowledge is very impacting on what they're doing.
It's very dangerous, because we become extremists.
Yep.
All we've done is recognise certain characteristics about them that have been similar to them for many, many years, or familiar to them for many, many years. They're the tricks that they've been using for donkey's years that my dad's generation never wised up to. And, you know, it took me 50 odd years to wise up to it myself. But as soon as I got into it and realised what was going on, I mean, I can sit here and see, because we do watch the politics show most days, mainly to, you know, see the stand-up comedy, but it's always interesting to pick up on the thought process that is coming out of Westminster. Right, for instance, right now they want us to get into the mindset that it's a good thing for us all to have these regional assemblies, and it may be, but it's all part and parcel of what's happening on November the 1st with the Lisbon Treaty, the Nice Treaty being ratified, because that's the way they operate their federalist parliamentary system in Europe.
They want to break Britain into regions. I think it's 10 regions.
Yeah, which is diluting the power of your vote all the time. It will dilute the power of your vote. Well, you know, if you want to bother voting, obviously, because you know, to vote is to enter into their paradigm. You're either got to be on the left or the right, or even further left or further right.
And but we don't vote for the MEPs, do we? So, like you say, they're diluting us down even further to another layer. So you're going to be even further away from having any kind of influence on those MEPs who are sat in Brussels deciding everything for us now, the region of Europe. Yeah.
They're unelected bureaucrats.
Yeah. And that QMV, quantitative, whatever voting, I can't remember what the M stands for, but it's quantitative voting. It's very similar to the way the unions were doing it back in the old Labour days, where one guy would stand up and put his hand up, and that would represent, say 12,500 votes, and so like only half a dozen people have got to put their hands up before a vote is carried, which is a ridiculous situation. And you know, I've always been in favour of alternative, you know, instead of this first past the post business. But they've overcome that now by sort of making it so there's not much difference between any of the parties, so we end up with this coalition bullshit where they can just use a mandate without actually going to the people to get that mandate.
One of my favourite cliché sayings for that is, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government always gets in.
Yeah. But I mean, all these little things, if you add them up, you know, we're probably not thinking that we're getting anywhere, but we really are, because we've just said we've cracked the Hegelian dialectic. Most of us now are beginning to cut through the bullshit that comes from Sky, BBC, and we've got Stephen Amman, who's going out of his way on his own. The effect he must be having on the BBC, they must be feeling that pinch with all the BBC propaganda stickers going out there, and now the new ones. I mean, people will be writing to him to get these test cards that can put in Tesco's and Sainsbury's on the notice boards. And that's going to be affecting the BBC. So Stephen Amman is actually, bless his little Yorkshire cotton socks, or is he from Lancashire? Whatever. Sorry about that, Stephen. Wherever you're from, mate. But you are having an effect on the price and the value of shares in the BBC. So all these things together are solutions that are beginning to have an effect and make them turn a little bit more paranoid. And I think that's why he said what he said on Friday, to try and put back a little bit of fear into us. But then again, you know, you mentioned it, and probably not in the right context, but, you know, if you're looking for Spartacus, we're all Spartacus.
Yep.
And I'm referring people to the Kirk Douglas version of Spartacus, not the sex-crazed soft porn version which appeared on Sky. You know,
that wasn't bad enough.
That's maybe I can, you know, use that as deliberately as a comedy vehicle. You know, there's another solution to get away from all the porn that's out there to manipulate people's minds, as we've seen it seep into mainstream media, where now you had that recent scandal about the celebrities' nude photos getting hacked and whatever, and it's just used again and again and again, sex used to lure people into this bullshitism, and it's just like, you want a solution to that? Have a wank. It's as simple as that. Or if you're female, strum your bean. Have a nice orgasm. Get on with your day. Yeah. And then their attempt to tempt you in with that sex drive again and again and again. It's like, you know, buy bubble gum, look at the boobs. All this stuff, sex is used throughout our society to try and either steer you or sell you some shit. Yeah.
I've only ever looked at 3/4 of one episode of Game of Thrones, and from what I saw of that was just another excuse to put
sex and
violence and sex together in one place, and also to confuse people about history, because the whole of that Game of Thrones is just pure and utter fiction that's come out of somebody's head.
Yeah.
It's like they used CSI to get us all into believing that, well, if you're going to commit a crime now, you need to, like, you know, wear rubber gloves, wear a paper suit, make sure you're hooded, this, that, and the other. I mean, it's putting criminals off. Perhaps that's a good thing, but there again, it's using the narrative of the story to put people off doing something, or to encourage people to do something.
No, it's absolute bullshit, because
police.
They have to put appeals out to solve murders, and they have to put reconstructions out. So what the fuck's CSI doing at this time?
Yeah, but they haven't done a CSI UK, have they?
No.
It'd probably be like watching the fucking Keystone Cops. We'll come and solve your crime, folks, but, you know, you might as well order a pizza, because the pizza will get there before we do.
Exactly, aye.
Yeah, but
we can't solve this crime without you. What's your job then?
Well, in what, 15 years' time, probably less, 7, 8 years' time, they're going to have every kid's fingerprint in the country if they carry on with this.
Well, it's going to be less.
Your thumbprint to get your school dinner business, and that's another solution to a problem. If you don't want your kid to have a bio ID card by the time he's 18 or she's 18, then start objecting at the level, because all the little infants, I think. I've noticed that my grandson has to wear an ID thing, and I've got no doubt still there'll be a chip in it. But all the kids at that school have got them, and I've already said to him, they're not taking your fingerprint to get a meal at lunchtime, are they? And he went, no, not yet. I said, well, if they do, you tell your dad straight away, and either take a packed lunch, or I'll pick you up at lunchtime and nip you home, or you can come to my house and have some lunch. Bogger giving your thumbprint away.
You know what would really piss them off? turn up at the school at lunchtime, get out a nice little barbecue set and cook him lunch there on the spot, feed him to him, get back in your car, drive home. You imagine all the kids that would be coming flocking out of that school going, oh, can I have one, can I have one, can I have one? Yeah, the way schools have become now is just so ridiculous. It really is. I find it difficult sometimes to comprehend that people are not seeing this, but I think that's, you know, part of the misconception that the media wants you to think that nobody else notices, that everything's all lovely and, you know, just like it is on EastEnders, everybody's just going about the fantasy TV life. Whereas when you actually do speak to neighbours, speak to people in your local community, they are aware of this kind of stuff. They know it's going on. You know, they might not know all the ins and outs of policies and shit. I've said this several times before, but people know it's going on, and more people are starting to turn around and say, "Hey, what you doing? Stop it."
Yeah. Did anyone see the BBC clip where they were in a school and it was a no tolerance to bullying, no tolerance to nothing, and they had all these kids lining up and they couldn't talk, they couldn't do nothing, and they lined up and they went into assembly and they had to walk in lines without talking, and they had to go into their classrooms, no talking, and they couldn't talk amongst themselves. And I was like, that's a fucking prison camp.
Yeah.
That's what it
They're
was.
not allowed to go to the toilet during that lesson time anyway.
That's
No?
right, aye. Unless they had a tag on them saying,
No,
I'm
you got
going
to
to the toilet.
piss or shit yourself before you know because you're not allowed to go to the because they don't want kids wandering corridors. And in some schools they've got security guards or soft police who are overstepping their mark and questioning kids on stuff they shouldn't be questioning them in because they're wandering the corridors while a lesson during lesson time.
G4S.
Yeah.
They have, I mean, it's maybe not quite as bad here in the UK, although it is in some of the inner city areas, depending on where you are. But you can easily look at places like in the USA, where a lot of their inner city schools are literally just like a prison. They are just exactly like a prison. You get locked in when you turn up. You're not allowed out until the end of the day. There's security gates everywhere. There's security armed sometimes. Security officers with the wands, they'll search you. It's just like a prison.
Yeah.
And that is putting a mindset into kids for when they leave school.
Yeah.
Fear of the uniform and everything, isn't it?
Yeah, and having your day-to-day general existence controlled and monitored by an authority figure. You know, the authority, you can't piss or shit unless the authority figure gives you permission to.
Yeah.
It really is enslavement, yeah.
So awareness to that, folks.
Solution to that, homeschooling. Or getting, if you're not happy to do homeschooling or you find a difficulty with it for whatever reason, then just look into being involved in the schools in your own community where your child goes, so that if you find out that they're going to do thumbprinting and whatever, you can step in and protest and try and stop it. Yeah, they're simple solutions, and again, they are solutions. They are there. People can try and take part in that stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about it, and it's been a problem about a hangout about solutions, and we, you know, amongst us as a people for the last 2-3 years, we've been actually providing solutions for ourselves. You know, because every time something, you know, there'll be, for instance, the fingerprints at school. There's 1 or 2 activists knocking around who are trying to put a halt to that mindset, you know, and that's only being transferred down from the likes of Ofsted. You know, I'd love to get rid of Ofsted. I think what a waste of space. Why are you putting so much pressure on an education system? What are you so feared about that you have to put all this pressure on kids and the school, and if they put them into special measures and all that bullshit, they have to go through some right rigorous crap. I know my daughter was, she's a school teacher. I mean, she's not like the teachers that I'm talking about, but I like to think my daughter's a human school teacher. But there are systems being put in place in schools where they're just prepping kids for popping out into society in the next few years, where they're hoping that politically they've changed the system so that it matches these kids. And like I said the other night, I think it was Adolf Hitler said that we're not interested in you as an older person, it's your children we want. That's not the exact words of the speech, but that was like the gist of it. If we can get your kids, that's all that matters, because that's the new generation that's coming through. The ones that are already here, we don't care about you. It's the young ones we want.
Yeah. That's why
it's indoctrination. They indoctrinate the Waynes for age 5 all the way up into secondary school, and then the teachers that are teaching them are already indoctrinated. So how are they going to know any different?
It's slaves teaching slaves to be good slaves.
Right, that's it.
And I agree with you, mate. Please don't. We shouldn't stereotype, and I don't think we are. And just for the people watching, listening, don't fall into the stereotype of saying all teachers are bad, all teachers are this.
No.
Not at all. There's a lot of people that see this kind of stuff as well and actively try and do something about it, or teach in a way that, sidesteps all that shit. But in general, this is the way the ship is going. And for me, this is why I've tried to get across to people that although it might seem good and fun and they love it, because kids do love stuff like this, giving your kid a gadget when they're only 3, 4, 5 years old, whether it's a mobile phone or an iPad or whatever, it's actually not a good idea. It's okay if they get to use it while you're there with them and you can interact with them about why it's good and the benefits we can get out of that kind of technology, and you help them see the good ways of making use of it and then put it down. Don't just give your kid a phone and let them run off and do their own thing with it, because you are literally plugging them into that enslavement system. Yeah, because that gadget will become I don't like to use this phrase, but it helps explain it. That will become the mark of the beast. People will be carrying around this little unit that is your communication device that will be used by the system to send you messages about where you're supposed to be and at what time and what fines you've got to pay. It will be your bank account. It will be like your credits will all be in that little unit. It will be your ration book, in effect. Yeah, as well as being the tracking device that keeps an eye on you and listens to everything you're doing and watch what you do. Just don't put them into that mindset. Help them see it as a piece of technology that has benefits, but it is just that. It's just like any other tool. Do you walk around with the hammer in your hand all day? No, it's a useful tool. You don't walk around with it in your hand all fucking day. To get that to them, to be able to put it down and walk away from it for some time of the day,
Yeah.
It's way beyond what we think. I was on a site the other night there, and I can't even remember what it was, but I clicked on like Google Maps, and it had plus James Jones, and it was straight where I stayed. And I was like, what the fuck? It was straight where I stayed. And I was like...
It was probably registering the IP address of the thing you were using to access the map. And it was showing like a "you are here" marker on the map.
Alright. I was like, what the fuck is that, man? It's pointed straight to where I lived.
Yeah.
Ian's just saying in chat room it's already at his school, his lad's school, to stop bullying and to help healthy eating. They think we're crazy.
I liked Bright's comment. So they will see nothing in the dark. They need, well, he's put, they need we as their new light, or us as their new light.
Yeah.
Yeah, good comment there, Bright.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to remember that for a lot of this stuff, a hell of a lot of this stuff that goes on in the world, they rely on us to actually lead it. You know, it's another one of those almost like reverse psychology things. It's the direction that we go that will decide what the future is. They'll try and nudge us in one way or the other, but they need us to lead what actually happens, because it's all us lot that actually makes it happen. They don't. They, in general, don't think up all the great ideas, great inventions, and all that kind of. No, they don't. They just parasite that off us, and then try to convince us that they came up with it. No, they fucking didn't. Yeah, it's like being pickpocketed by some guy, and he then tries to sell you your own wallet, saying that he just made it. You know, what? Go away. But yeah, it's very true.
Definitely.
We're coming up to 2 hours now. I just thought it might be fitting to just hit. Taz, hit it about the Japanese volcano on
Taki.
The other day when it went off, and there was hikers. Well, they've found 31 bodies so far. I'm not going to play it because it's BBC. We don't want shite off the bitches. But let's cite what got hit with that dust cloud. Well, the semi-pyroclastic flow. They've found 31 bodies so far.
I've seen the photos, but horrible.
Just dropping into, that's the list of the actual volcanoes that are erupting at the moment, which is quite long.
How ironically appropriate is it that there's an advert for a Sparta game thing on the side of that web page?
Not again. It keeps popping up that, doesn't it? Oh no.
Alright.
That's 2 days running that's happened.
You can be Spartacus, you just need to play this game on your computer.
I wonder if I listen to what you're saying.
They do.
There's the map of the active volcanoes at the moment. I'll just pull it over a little bit. And I'll just finish off. I'll give you some pictures of sun again in different spectrums. But we've got that big coronal all there coming our way. There's a little one here.
There is a couple of new big spots coming over the limb, I think, which will start turning towards us within about a week or so. We'll see how they develop.
Yeah.
Hopefully we might have more of this kind of late summer effect with the warmth and sunshine we've had.
Yeah.
No, it's quite mild up here in Glasgow.
You've got some nice CMEs here, which will be earth facing if they break away. A couple of loops there. Magnetic loops, if they break off, you CME off these coronal mass ejections.
Well, they might do, they might not.
Can't remember which.
What are you talking about, Dean? The sun's got nothing to do with the weather.
I know, yeah. And then I can't remember which order I put them in to tell you which spectrums they were in. I totally forgot while looking for other sites.
That's all right. People want to look at that kind of stuff. You know, it's there out on the internet for them to look at if they want.
This is actually Soho Live. So these are like minutes old, these pictures that we're looking at.
A big ball of electricity.
Yeah.
What are you on about? It's nothing to do with electricity. It's nuclear powered. It's big bombs like what we can make.
It's 10,000 million degrees.
So, like I said, we've come up to 2 hours now. Do you want to hit anything before I say thanks to everybody in chat room and so on?
Not that I can think of. I know I could reiterate what I said at the start, so I won't, because I did rant and ramble for quite a while. I think I said enough of it at the start. If people missed it, just rewind and watch the beginning bit. To me, this is about solutions. As Kendo very nicely said, it's about the frame of mind of solutions. It's not about a bullet-pointed blueprint plan of what you do in your day. It's about getting the right kind of frame of mind going first, and then you will see there are solutions out there.
Think positive at all times.
Agreed.
And don't let it get you down.
And I apologise if I turned it into, at the beginning, a toilet thing. That's just my way.
No, it's a good example of using a kind of meditative technique in what I would call a shamanic purging effect. You are trying to shed the negativity that's building up so that you get more balance back again. So they throw all this shit at you, and you then just shit it out again.
Yeah, I dump it back on them in my mind, mate. Yeah, definitely. Most days of the week.
And hats off to you, all. They're gone now.
No problem, Jamie. No fucking problem.
До свидания.
On that note,
The solution will be you will all be part of the Russian Federation.
on
Yes,
that
for
note,
me,
I'll
I would
say-
like to say Dobre вечер, which means good night in Russian, or good evening. And if you want to know how to say nighty night to people in Russian, it's Spokojnej noci.
I'll say
Easy for you to say.
Spokojnej noci.
Yeah, notchy.
just before I go, there's a guy just dropped in from Canada, Stolo Nation Warrior. As a Canadian listener, I have enjoyed your chat. Cheers, buddy. Hope we'll see you in chat room more often.
we'll have to get Linda Little Bear in on one of these chats at some point if she's up for it.
Definitely. What I'll do, I'll say thanks to everybody in the chat room that's kept conversation going as always, and thanks Kendo, James, and Cookie, and
Thanks
also
for hosting.
Fady Poo, and Peter that joined us as well. And on that note, thanks. Good night all.
On that note.